A man once told his girlfriend everything about his past, every single detail. He thought honesty was the ultimate sign of love. 3 weeks later, she used every word he said against him in an argument. And 6 weeks after that, she was gone. Not because he was a bad person, but because he handed her the ammunition to destroy the very image she fell in love with. And the worst part? He still doesn't understand what went wrong. Here's something that might sting a little. According to a study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, couples who practiced what researchers call strategic self-disclosure reported 36% higher relationship satisfaction than couples who shared everything without filters. 36%. That's not a small number. That's the difference between a relationship that thrives and one that slowly bleeds out. Now, before anyone gets the wrong idea, this is not about lying. This is not about being fake. This is about understanding a truth that most men are never taught. There are certain things that, once spoken out loud, cannot be taken back. Words that change the way someone sees you permanently. And no amount of explaining, no amount of context, no amount of, but I was just being honest, will undo the damage. And the frustrating thing is, society keeps telling men the opposite. Be vulnerable. Share everything. Open up. And look, vulnerability is beautiful. It's necessary. But there's a massive difference between healthy vulnerability and reckless emotional dumping. One builds trust, the other destroys attraction. So today, I'm going to walk through 5 specific secrets that a man should guard carefully. 5 categories of information that, when revealed at the wrong time, to the wrong person, or in the wrong way, can silently erode everything he's built. And number 3 on this list is the one that catches almost every man off guard because it sounds completely harmless on the surface. Let's get into it. There's a difference between saying, I'm working on building something better, and saying, I lie awake at night panicking because I don't know how I'm going to pay rent next month. Both are honest, but they land completely differently. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. If she can't handle me at my worst, she doesn't deserve me at my best. And sure, that sounds great on a motivational poster, but in real life, human psychology doesn't work that way. Dr. Helen Fisher, a biological anthropologist at Rutgers University, has spent decades studying what drives attraction and attachment. And one of her consistent findings is that perceived stability is one of the top 3 factors that sustain long-term romantic bonds. Not wealth, stability. The sense that this person has a handle on their life. When a man shares his deepest financial fears in raw, unfiltered detail, especially early in a relationship, something shifts. It's not that she suddenly thinks he's a loser. It's more subtle than that. A quiet alarm starts going off in her subconscious. Not because she's shallow, but because human beings are hardwired to assess security in their partners. We've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years. That wiring doesn't disappear because we live in apartments now instead of caves. I once knew a guy named Marcus. Brilliant guy. Funny, charming, the whole package. He started dating this woman who was clearly into him. About a month in, during a moment of what he thought was emotional intimacy, he broke down and told her about his $40,000 in debt, his fear that he'd never get ahead, and how his father went bankrupt and he was terrified of repeating the cycle. She didn't leave immediately, but he noticed the shift. The texts got shorter. The enthusiasm faded. Within 2 months, it was over. And when he asked her what happened, she said something that stuck with me. She said, I didn't lose respect for you because of the debt. I lost it because you seemed defeated by it. That's the key distinction. It's not the struggle itself. It's presenting yourself as someone who is consumed by the struggle, rather than actively fighting through it. A man can acknowledge financial challenges without turning himself into an object of pity. I'm in a season of building hits completely different than I'm drowning and I don't know what to do. Keep the raw panic for your journal, your therapist, or your closest male friend who's been through it. The woman in your life needs to see the fighter, not the man on the mat questioning whether he should get back up. This one is a minefield, and almost every man steps on it at some point. She asks about your ex. It feels like an intimate moment. She seems genuinely curious. So you start talking. You mention how beautiful your ex was. You talk about that trip you took to Barcelona together. You describe the passion, the intensity, maybe even the heartbreak of losing her. And you think you're bonding. You think you're being open. But what's actually happening inside her mind is something entirely different. Psychologist Dr. Shirley Glass, who spent over 25 years researching relationship dynamics, found that detailed discussions about past romantic partners created what she called comparison anxiety in the listening partner. Even when the stories were negative, even when the man was clearly over his ex, the level of detail planted seeds of insecurity that grew over time. Here's what most men don't realize. When you tell her your ex was gorgeous but crazy, she hears gorgeous. When you say the passion was incredible but the fights were terrible, she hears incredible passion. Her brain latches onto the positive descriptors and starts measuring herself against a ghost. And it gets worse. If you speak negatively about your ex in too much detail, she doesn't just feel sorry for you, she starts wondering what you'll say about her one day. Every criticism you level at your former partner becomes a preview of how you might talk about her to the next woman. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition, and women are extraordinarily good at it. The smart move is elegant simplicity. It didn't work out. We wanted different things. I learned a lot from it. Done. That's it. That answer communicates maturity, emotional intelligence, and most importantly, that you're not still mentally living in a relationship that ended. Nobody needs a documentary about your romantic history. A trailer is more than enough. Now, this is the one I warned you about. The one that sounds completely harmless but carries hidden explosives. Most men, when pressed about what attracted them to a woman, default to physical descriptions. Your smile, your body, the way you looked in that dress the first time I saw you. And yes, these are genuine. These are real. But saying them out loud, especially as your primary reasons, triggers something a woman will never fully articulate but will absolutely feel. She starts to wonder what happens when the dress doesn't fit the same way, when the smile has worry lines around it, when time does what time always does. A study from the University of Texas at Austin found that women in long-term relationships who believed their partner's attraction was primarily physical reported significantly higher rates of relationship anxiety and lower self-esteem over time. Not because their partners were doing anything wrong, but because physical attraction, by its very nature, feels conditional, temporary, dependent on something she can't fully control. The real secret here isn't about lying, it's about understanding what she's actually asking when she says, "What made you notice me?" She's not asking for a physical inventory, she's asking, "Will you still choose me when things change?" And the answer that lands, the one that she'll remember at 2 a.m. when she's questioning everything, isn't about her appearance, it's about her essence. Something about the way you carry yourself told me you were different. You said something that night that made me think, this one actually gets it. I watched how you treated the waiter, and I knew. Those answers don't expire. Those answers don't depend on a gym membership or a skincare routine, and those are the answers that make a woman feel chosen rather than selected. The attraction is real. The physical pull is real. But the moment you reduce your interest to the physical, you've accidentally told her that your loyalty has an expiration date tied to her appearance. And that thought, once planted, never fully goes away. There's a phenomenon in psychology called moral licensing, and it explains why telling someone about the good things you've done almost always backfires. When a man tells a woman, "I sacrificed my weekend to help my friend move," or "I gave money to my cousin when he was struggling," or "I stayed up all night to make sure you got home safe," something counterintuitive happens. Instead of raising his value in her eyes, it subtly cheapens the act itself. Robert Cialdini, the renowned psychologist and author of Influence, has written extensively about how the perceived motivation behind an act of kindness determines its impact. When someone announces their own goodness, the listener unconsciously shifts from gratitude to suspicion. Why is he telling me this? Does he want credit? Is this transactional? The most attractive men, the ones who seem to have an almost magnetic pull, rarely if ever narrate their own kindness. They let it speak through actions that others notice and mention. There's a massive difference between her hearing from your friend, "Man, he dropped everything to help me last week," and hearing you say the exact same thing about yourself. One creates admiration, the other creates mild irritation. I read something once that perfectly captures this. A lion doesn't need to tell you it's a lion. The moment a man starts cataloging his sacrifices, he's no longer the hero of the story. He's the narrator begging for applause, and begging in any form is the opposite of attractive. Let the kindness exist without commentary. Let the sacrifice be its own reward. Because the woman who's paying attention, and trust me, she's always paying attention, will notice everything you never said. And that silence will mean more to her than any speech ever could. This last one is going to be controversial, but stay with me because it's arguably the most important. Some men, in an effort to show they're serious and committed, lay out their entire romantic roadmap. I want to be married in 2 years. I'm looking for the mother of my children. I've been thinking about our future, and here's exactly how I see it unfolding. And on paper, that sounds wonderful. Mature, even. But in practice, it often creates an effect that's the exact opposite of what he intended. Dr. Esther Perel, one of the most respected relationship therapists in the world, talks extensively about how desire requires a certain amount of uncertainty. Not insecurity, not game playing, but genuine space for things to unfold organically. When a man reveals his entire long-term romantic strategy too early or too explicitly, he inadvertently removes the very mystery that keeps romantic energy alive. She's no longer wondering where this is going. She's no longer leaning forward with curiosity. The story has been spoiled. The ending has been revealed before the middle chapters were even written. And here's the deeper problem. When you announce your timeline, you've essentially handed her a checklist. And now, instead of experiencing the relationship moment by moment, she's evaluating whether reality matches the plan. Every delay becomes a red flag. Every deviation becomes a broken promise. You've turned a love story into a project management timeline, and nobody falls in love with a Gantt chart. The men who handle this best communicate direction without destination. I know what I want in life, and I'm moving toward it is infinitely more powerful than, here's my 5-year plan for us. The first says confidence. The second says desperation wearing a suit. Let the relationship breathe. Let her wonder a little. Let the future reveal itself through consistent action rather than premature declaration. Because the truth about women and commitment is this: she doesn't want to be told about the destination. She wants to feel through your behavior that you're the kind of man worth traveling with. So let's bring this full circle. 5 categories of information that can quietly dismantle everything a man is trying to build. His raw financial fears, the detailed history of his past relationships, the purely physical basis of his attraction, his self-narrated acts of kindness, and his premature romantic master plan. None of these involve lying, not a single one. This is about understanding that honesty and wisdom are not the same thing. Honesty is telling the truth. Wisdom is knowing which truths serve the moment and which truths need a better time, a better place, or in some cases, no audience at all. The strongest men I've ever observed aren't the ones who share everything. They're the ones who understand that what they withhold is just as powerful as what they reveal. They speak with intention. They protect their inner world not out of fear, but out of respect for the weight their words carry. And if any of this resonated, if you felt that shift in understanding, then you already sense that there's more to this than just keeping secrets. It's about the energy you carry, the way you show up, the things you do without saying a word. And speaking of things you do without saying a word, there is one specific gesture, one move that communicates more than 1,000 conversations ever could. Most men have never even heard of it, and the few who use it consistently report that it completely transforms how women respond to them. I actually broke it down in detail right here in this next video, the most powerful gesture that melts any woman and that no one uses. If you understood what we just talked about today, that video is the natural next step. Because if silence is power, this gesture is the loudest silence you'll ever use. It's right there on your screen. I'll see you in it.